Hello, Gary Simon here of DesignCourse.com. Today I'm going to announce the winner of the Design Challenge number 2 of Flat Icon Design and also do a quick review of each of the submissions. Alright, so if you haven't yet, check out DesignCourse.com and subscribe here at YouTube.
Okay, so let's go ahead and go over the requirements real quick just before we look at the entries. So 256 by 256, font needs to be flat design. Display all 3 icons in the same reply, and basically if we come down here we'll see the criteria: design consistency, the versatility, so is it simple enough to be seen and understood at smaller icon sizes, executional flat design, and good icon design aesthetics. Alright, so I'm going to come down here, and our first entry is from the Design Prodigy, and I do like the colors. There's contrast, which is good. So you have this kind of this pinkish type of color, although it's not real saturated. And then the white on top, that creates for good contrast. That's good. The second thing, in terms of simplicity, these are also good. I don't see any issue with, scaling them down a lot and then being able to decipher what they are. I would say my only criticism, which is kind of minor, it's just there's not a lot of white space, I would say, between the containing element of the icon and the actual icon design itself. So over here, there's not much white space, there's not much margin, but not that big of a deal. So, all right, so we'll come down here to Matrix, and I would say right off the bat, I would probably get rid of this drop shadow type of, this hard dark drop shadow, I would say, type of element. I would say it's kind of a needed. And then secondly, when it comes to, let's take this calendar icon for example, when it comes to the real thin lines, you usually run into an issue when you're scaled down. So if I right click and copy image, go into Photoshop, get a new document out here, paste that in, and we'll scale it down. Say to an actual size, although this would probably be even larger than would be used on a website, for example. You'll see that they become a little bit hard to distinguish when you scale them down a lot. So we could see over here he did use thicker strokes and lines, so you could still basically see the general idea and the shape, but over here it becomes a lot difficult. So that's just something to remember when you're designing icons. Try to stay away from the real thin lines like this, and also design consistency. Because design consistency, we'll see that over here use thicker lines, which is good. Over here, not so much. So there's not much consistency, I would say, in terms of just this one over here. These two are definitely better because they're thicker. All right, so just let's move on to the second one here. And I'm not going to try to pronounce that. He told me just to call him C-Man up here. So, all right, so over here on this one, I would say the biggest issue that pops out to me is contrast, or the lack thereof. So over here, like this calendar icon, it's blue on blue basically, and I know this is a little bit darker, but it's still a little bit difficult to distinguish even at a larger size like this. So if we copy this and we go into Photoshop and we scaled that down to like an actual size it might be used on a website, becomes pretty difficult to see, what exactly is going on here, because almost all the elements, with exception to the 2 top rings, are blue. All right, and I would say maybe probably the same thing almost for this as well. There's not a lot of contrast in between this blue and this orange, because this is a lighter blue. This is also a lighter orange, and so it kind of creates a little bit of a clash. That's why a lot of people will just use white, because that will provide for the most contrast for most colors. All right, probably the same thing to say with this the green over here as well. Now the blue definitely sticks out in contrast, even though they're both blue, but this is almost like a black almost, so that will work. All right. All right, over here, I really like these. I just do have one discrepancy, which is what I was talking about up here, and that's the contrast is not too much over here. This blue with this type of yellowish color, they're almost they're very similar. The only thing you're changing is just the color, so the contrast isn't too much. Same thing over here, although this is a minor. I mean, this is not white. You can see this isn't white. They could probably definitely be improved just by being white, and that way you can see them better. But that's just a minor criticism, because I do like everything else with these icons. So you can still tell it's a shopping cart, edit, and a calendar. So that's good. And so as we can see, there's a lot of white space around there between the containing element and the icon. I probably would say, like, another minor one, maybe get rid of some of these. You probably don't need so many because at smaller sizes you would see that it becomes like a blur almost. But that's just a minor. These are good otherwise. All right, let's come down here. We got a different type of container, which is completely fine. Again, we run into the issue with contrast over here with this green and blue. Kind of makes it hard to decipher where the icon begins, especially when you're going to be at smaller sizes. Also, not much white space between the icon and the containing element. Yeah, otherwise, I like the design of this. This does almost stick out enough, this yellow, this pencil. And yeah, so let's continue on. All right, same thing here with the not a lot of white space. So I would say it would be worth scaling the actual icons down a little bit, the actual designs. Contrast, it works out very well, because we just have a simple, darker sort of orange and then a complete white design on top of it, so that works. Just another minor issue, just some tiny nitpicking things, I guess you could call them. When it comes to the stroke or the negative space that's right here, you can see that's not the same thing right here. It's kind of like goes right into it. And yeah, otherwise did good. I'm going to go here to undo. Now this one has a lot of white space. We can see that, between the containing element, it fits well. And over here, another issue with the contrast, I would say, this pencil could be lighter or the background be a little bit darker. But yeah, pretty good. I mean, you'll be able to tell what these are at smaller sizes, so that's good. All right, and all over. One thing that kind of threw me off right away is like the calendar icon is just kind of stuck up at the top and not centered. Well, not a big deal though. Another issue I would say for these two, these are real. I alluded this to one of the first ones. So this is the white here is real thin, and then adding a 1 pixel stroke on top of it makes it kind of difficult to see if you were to scale that down, I would say. So if we took that one to scale it down, it almost becomes indistinguishable. So yeah, just something to know. I mean, the fix obviously is making it thicker. And then maybe the same thing in here, although not so much, because you could see like the background in a 1 pixel manner and back there. So when it comes to scaling it down, those type of things kind of get lost and blurred out. All right, otherwise good. All right, and then we have PSYOPs over here. And one thing I noticed right away, when you have a lot of detail like this, like these tiny thin lines, and also you went through the work of putting all the actual numbers in, at a larger icon size, that's fine. But if you were to use the same one and scale that thing down, all of the numbers would get lost and it would just become blurry, and it would take away from the overall icon for the most part, in my opinion. All right, and I would also say some contrast issues like the top bar up here. this gray in there kind of won't stick out as much as it could. All right, I'm going to move on and undo. All right, so this is the second entry. This is similar to one of the ones he showed. Let me find that up here. So I think he increased the size, basically. Let me see here. Yeah, which is fine. It still has a decent enough white space between the containing element and the icon. All right, Oliver. And we looked at one of his before, and he got rid of the stroke, which is a good thing. I still say it could probably the stroke, the what do you call, the weight of this line, these lines could be increased for sure. But yeah, it's definitely an improvement from the previous. All right, and Soren, we have over here. I like the icons. Just looking at them right off the bat, there's no contrast issues, so everything kind of contrasts well. We have the white space between there is good. Right click and copy those, just so we can see that they probably scale down well. There might be an issue here because there's a lot of lines at the bigger version. So if I scaled that down, you could still generally see what's going on though, right? Tunzer, we have, I would say kind of some, like for this one here in the middle, this real light yellow, that creates an issue of contrast between white backgrounds, obviously, so you can't really see a defined shape almost. In terms of the white space, that's good. Nothing's really getting too close to the edges or anything, so that's definitely good. The design and simplicity of each icon is good. This might be a little bit too thin on this bottom portion, but that's being nitpicky. The shadow, there's a very faint shadow here, and it's kind of working opposite of how a shadow would work, you would think, because it's actually lighter than this background containing element. I think an improvement, I mean, again, this is kind of nitpicky, but an improvement would be to make it darker, the shadow, so you can kind of see that it's an actual shadow and not like a glow. Otherwise, that's pretty good. Everything's pretty simple. And then we just have one final one down here, and that's from Oliver. And I like this because they work really well at this size for sure. So if we were to take this, of course, and go into Photoshop and just scale it down real quickly, like, trying to get it at a site or at a size it would actually be used on a website, maybe like this. You would see kind of like a blur. Now, designing specific, like for example, if you were to take an icon set and design these real intricate lines that work well at these very large sizes, that's fine as long as you were to also redesign it basically for it to work in the smaller icon. So that would mean having to get rid of a lot of these lines, maybe thicken some things up, and just make everything very simple. So just having a simple outline along here of the pencil, making it thicker, getting rid of all these lines in the middle and getting rid of a lot of these, that would be fine. But that, of course, creates a lot of work. Nothing wrong with that. But of course, for this contest, we wanted to be versatile. I like the designs as they stand right here. But all right, so basically, out of all these, I would say that if it came to, sorry, kids outside my door being loud, I had to pause for a bit. Out of all of these, I would say, I think I was gonna choose this one because it has a lot of contrast, which is great. It's simple, a lot of white space. But I brought it into Photoshop, and the size of this portion is not 256. And I know that's being nitpicky, but it's a requirement. I kind of have to stick to that because I know people would get all pissed off probably. Hopefully they wouldn't. I don't know. But what I think he was probably going for, it probably is 256 because he included these shadow things, which I would say generally you probably want to stay away from with because then it's not very versatile. People wouldn't want to use it as an icon set at least. But yeah, so if I'm going up here, this is a close contender, I would say. This probably even more so. It's the same one, except he scaled it up a little bit larger, but I think it still works. Maybe somewhere in between those two is a good size between the white space. But still, we have the issue kind of the contrast issue. It's not a big deal, but just to critique it in a sense. And then we have this one over here. I would say if we compared these two, this and that, I definitely like the design, for example, of like this shopping cart better than this one, but these two are very close. There is slight contrast issues with both of them, but I do like the overall design a little bit better than this one, so that's why I'm going to name Maddie the winner of this week's challenge. All right, so if you didn't win, listen, a lot of these were very close. I almost want to stop having to pick a winner and just stick with just doing a critique just to help people, because it is difficult when a lot of them are similar. So yeah. All right, so we'll do a third design challenge soon. I'm not exactly sure when, probably in a few days. I'll announce that. If you want to throw out some ideas, I probably want to stay away from doing like a full website design, because that just becomes a huge amount of work for everybody, and we probably wouldn't get many submissions due to time constraints. So, if you have an idea that's something that is relatively, quick, you could throw that out there. I think I have a few ideas of my own anyhow. So I will announce that soon. All right, so hopefully you guys learned something. And yeah, I will see you guys tomorrow with a new design video. All right, goodbye.